Brooks, I'm live, so.
You see it. Like showing up on your main channel. Pull up videos. Home. Oh, no, it's showing it. Live podcast, yep. Live now. I'll have to get it off her because we don't want to hear ourselves talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows the house.
Cool.
I can see live action.
Live action.
Yepers. True live action.
There you are, Brooks.
I heard a live action.
Alright, I'm gonna just set that right there for now. Dane, what's the deal with those coals, man?
Yeah, let me get them going. Hold on.
I'm gonna start smoking some hookah.
Yeah. Trust me, that's on my plate.
After the day before and yesterday, my back's killing me.
I know.
How long? How long?
Coffee cups are above the coffee maker, Dane.
Oh, thanks. I'm gonna use a plate for these coals.
And then sugar's right there too. I don't use creamer, so.
I don't put anything in mine. I like my creamer like Whoopi Goldberg's lips. The back of Whoopi. The back
I
of
like a
Wesley
little
Snipes' neck.
sweetness. I like a little sweetness in mine.
So I don't burn a hole in your floor. Is it okay if I use this plate?
Yep.
Hey,
So
see how I sold that?
So exactly what is that?
Right here, these are coconut coals. I'm gonna go heat them up on your stove, and then we're gonna put them on top of this shisha. And then when the shisha's already in there,
About to do we're with the Brooks. We're about to do the live podcast.
Did you log in on my phone, bro?
I'm trying.
Really? Can you do it? Once you type it in, I can.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got all my stuff put in, but it's not letting me. Stupid security shit. Here's Dane. Brooks. This is going to be the Arrowhead Talk live podcast. We're surrounded by Native American artifacts. I mean, I'm talking completely.
You have to reset your password?
Sorry for the YouTube live. We're still getting stuff figured out. We're going live on all accounts, so.
Hey, that sounds good.
Okay. We are live on both accounts of mine. Ow!
Hold on.
Good morning, Arrowhead Land.
Yeah! Okay, this is Instagram Live for the podcast. We're at Brooks Nomadic Adventures from YouTube. Everybody knows it. It's awesome. We're at his house doing it today. It's kind of cool because you're just surrounded by what you want to be surrounded by when you're doing something like this. It's easy to talk about when everywhere you look is nothing but arrowheads. Have you made it down to Bass Pro yet and checked out their new Indian?
Not the new one that they just opened up. I was down there beforehand.
Man, it's awesome. You're gonna dig it. It's totally awesome, man.
Yeah, see, Johnny Morris bought a lot of arrowheads from guys around here.
Yeah,
That whole rice log collection he has.
Yeah.
Came from less than 15 minutes from here.
Really? Ah.
You can't get in that shelter anymore.
Yeah, I know.
You're gonna get caught.
I know which one you're talking about.
Twins.
Yep, I know which one you're talking about.
Most of them come from twins. He did have a lot that come out of Irv too.
Yeah.
But that's all Shannon Northrop's.
Yep.
Right,
What you know anything about Dalton's? He bought because his Dalton collection is.
I'm not even recording.
It's sick.
Yeah, he bought.
That's fine. We're live, so.
Dalton's from guys around here too.
Dane just got the hookah loaded.
All right.
See some old stuff in there.
Okay, I'm recording now.
Okay, so Dane, here, you want to set this phone up wherever you want it?
Yeah, buddy. Today we're going to have Mike Brooks on from Brooksy's Nomadic Adventures. And basically. He's an outdoorsman. No matter what you think you are, he is an outdoorsman. He literally is outdoors fishing or finding arrowheads and spends 80% of his time outside. And I'd say, yeah. And he's hunting mushrooms. He's out there. And today we're gonna have him on. So welcome.
Thank you, Dane. Digger Jim.
Okay, so Brooks, you're probably gonna be the main person in this screen
That's what I was going for.
because that's just where I have to put it.
We're good.
Okay, yeah, Brooks, awesome to have you, man. This is gonna be sick. I can't wait to get into some of this stuff. We should have been recording long ago because we've already covered so much stuff that we didn't even record, and we're gonna get to everything.
Well, yeah, we'll go back over that stuff. Thanks a lot.
There's a bunch of it, so.
Whatever topics you guys want to bring up.
Well, why don't you just start with something? I mean,
Well,
you said you wanted to bring up a main topic.
since we're all not just artifact hunters, surface hunters, we're all diggers.
Yeah, we all dig.
Okay. We definitely need to bring that subject about because too many people like to hate on diggers, especially mainstream archaeologist guys and people that are very well uneducated about us. Most people think that most diggers, all they do is trespass and raid, graze, and trespass on people's property and raid their property, whatever. Most all good diggers are very ethical people. And we don't just do it for what we find, but because of the way we find things and what else we find with them. You always learn a lot more from digging than you will ever surface hunting.
Yes, for sure.
When I first started hunting, everyone around me, some of the older guys, that's all they told me. Some of the younger guys always say your best finds always come from digging. So a little bit of both of that inspired me to dig. I was digging within the first week. I really wanted to intelligently hunt, I call it, you know.
Yeah.
Because I hunted for a couple of years and I stunk.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd go walk in a creek for a little while and never find nothing because I didn't grid everything out correctly.
Yep.
Or I wasn't real educated on being able to find good field areas.
Yeah.
Because there's so much into finding good sites, but there's always one main thing that matters anywhere you go in the country. You need a good spring close by.
Yes.
Too many people like to think that they just drink water out of any river. We're not like northern Alaska water. That water stays very cold,
The Muddy River,
so
man.
it keeps a lot of the bacteria down. And then if you're drinking that water for a long time, you become immune to it a little bit. Down here, especially before the white man ever showed up,
Sorry, I was telling you to flip those coals there. Well,
the amount of animals that were here was probably fathomably ridiculous to imagine.
yeah.
Because one thing that they were never going to do was outdo their resources.
Yeah.
You do that, you have no more. So you're always going to have a lot of animal feces in any water, especially with beavers back then.
Yeah.
Besides all the other animals getting into the water. You drink that water from anywhere, you're going to get sick. May be harmful to you even more than just being sick.
Yeah.
You know, especially back then, they didn't have no medicine, you know, modern day medicine. Now they probably definitely knew all different types of herbs, you know, natural growing things to use.
Remedies and stuff.
Yeah.
I wonder though how their bodies reacted to the dirty water compared to when the white settlers came over. They got sick. They got dysentery, but they brought over smallpox. Like it was a trade-off. The natives were like, "What drink?" You know, they were drinking out of stuff that the Europeans were like, this isn't good."
Yeah, I'm sure they still got sick though.
Yeah,
I'm sure
for sure.
That was the last
Well,
resort, man.
That could explain
the spring water theory comes from my own 20 years of experience.
Yeah.
You can go to any spring, and if you're on the right piece of terrain, there's a camp there somewhere. Even if you're not going to open up the ground, the right time of year, especially wintertime, you're going to find manufactured flakes or something on top of the ground.
Yes.
Mhm.
I have all kinds of places I go to, let's say morel hunt, where I find flakes and broken points on top of the ground here and there, and it's always because there's a spring close by.
Yeah. Yep, every time. And you know, some things I've actually noticed before is even Land of the Lost.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no direct spring close, like right underneath the site, but it's within a mile of the site. So even in close proximity, they still, you know, set up camp. And where Land of the Lost is, think of all the sites that are around that. I mean, I can think of probably
definitely.
6 sites, 3 hilltop sites. So I mean, Land of the Lost, Richard will even tell you, it's the most loaded woodland site that he's ever dug on, that I've ever dug on. I mean, when I first found it, we were finding 20 points a day on top of the ground, not even digging. It's just so loaded.
Within feet of those 2 hills, and on top of those hills, there's older points up there. But it's so rocky, so difficult to dig them up.
But
There's
what's
a lot
cool
of-
is you find those Etley points in the Land of the Lost, and it's not because of archaic people being there, it's because of those sites were just right above them, and I know they were up there finding those points.
Well, absolutely.
They had to be.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's loaded with Etleys.
Everybody forgets they were the ultimate rock hunter. That's all they had to depend on stone. So they were always constantly hunting stone.
Yeah.
Whether picking it up out of a waterway, a creek, a river, or looking for places to mine it from.
Yeah. And, man, the flint right there, and you know a lot about flint. The flint at Land of the Lost is so much different than if you go 2 miles down the road and dig on a different hill. It's like, it's very different. I mean...
Well, that's the thing about Missouri. We probably have more types of variety of stones than any other area that I know of.
Yeah.
I mean, I could pull out the book and pop off names, but I mean, it's ridiculous. And then when you get into our stones, most of them all have several different varieties per stone.
Yeah, you're definitely pretty knowledgeable about
But,
the material.
I mean, we have rhyolite, Missouri, we have Sexite, Gascony Church, one of our local churches. Ruby-Doo Church is one of ours. Then you have Ruby-Doo Quartzite, and you have Jefferson City Quartzite, which them two are very hard to determine between each other because they look so close.
Yeah.
And I mentioned you have Jeff City Church, which comes in 7 different varieties, which is most of, probably like 75% of the material at the Dirty Hole, my site, is Jefferson City Church. You have the conglomerate variety, you have the oolitic variety, quartzite variety, ellipsoidal variety, the mottled variety, and the banded variety, and then you have the Mozart variety. And for years I was always misinformed a lot on Mozartite. I would call any type of Just City Chert a Mozartite, but actually Mozartite is a variety of 3 different stones. You have Just City Chert, Chateau Chert, and Burlington.
Okay.
And then it has to have red, pink, or purple in it. It can have little blotches of gray, cream, blue mixed in there with it, sometimes a little bit of black.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't have the red and pink in it, it's not a Mozartite.
Yeah.
And then it's also, it doesn't matter what variety it's from, you know, the Chateau, the Burlington, or Just City Chert. It's one of the ones with the most amount of hardness on it, as to where a diamond is 10 on the MLH scale. Mozartite is always a 7.5.
Really? It's that hard, huh?
Where a lot of your Just City Chert is right at 7 or a little bit under 7. Your Burlington is like 5 and 6 with
Yeah.
a hardness. Your Chateau is a little bit closer to the Mozartite level.
Okay.
Uh,
So, okay, what's some of that stuff that's up in like Callaway County, that real bright colored? I mean, there's greens, oranges, of course, reds, pinks, purples.
well, see, there's a lot of different varieties of Burlington as well.
Is that what is it?
Yeah.
So some of that heat treated Burlington, maybe, is that why it's getting some of that color?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, I have no idea, but when we have ditches, we hunt up, you know, on the Missouri, and it is
Wow.
the colors and the point quality just goes 10 times of what we're used to finding down here, just in, you know, 45 miles of.
Well, the thing about that Burlington is that's why in my area I don't find a lot of points over 4 inches.
Yeah.
Compared to if you go north of the Missouri River where a lot of the Burlington is, or close to the Missouri, because that material is a lot softer.
Yeah.
Even in raw, they're able to nap bigger points out of it.
Yeah.
It's easier to nap with, as to where if you take, you know, a lot of our materials here, Just City, Chateau, Gasconade, Ruby Dew, its hardness level is a little stronger. So it makes it a tougher napper.
Yeah.
You know, makes it tougher to nap on.
Yeah, you know, like Richard's not dirty hole site, his no name, you notice everything up there is what you would call Mozarkite, correct? That is, so is that Mozarkite?
Well, most of it is all Just City Church.
Okay, so that is, see, I've always been misinformed as well. So what I think of Mozarkite is obviously Just City Church. So I am totally backwards in this material.
Yeah, let me get my points out. I got a lot of stuff off the Missouri River.
You want to smoke on that, Mike?
I'm good.
He's got his own cigarette. He doesn't need molasses flavored tobacco. I love Hookah Talk. It's got hookah involved. And it's a good time. You have a lot of good conversations around this. So
Yeah, Mike, just to be here in his house, I mean, just overlooking everything, he's definitely got a badass house. I mean,
Well, I don't have a woman to decorate.
And you know what?
It's all me.
most would say you're lucky.
no.
I love my wife to death, but you know, our house, if it was my way, it'd be like this, you know, totally. Arrowheads everywhere. But you have a lot of artifacts.
A lot of the other stuff is all native of one type or another, and all that stuff I had way before I ever started hunting.
Yeah. How long have you been hunting?
20 years.
20 years. Wow.
But I say only 18 years intelligently. I mean, I wandered around the first 2 years.
Yeah, I can agree with that. With myself.
It's like hunting in the creek. When I first started hunting in the creek, I'd hop in, I'd do a straight line walk in and a straight line walk back out, and hardly ever find anything. Once I learned I needed to grid everything out like I do in a field, that's when I started to find.
I got lucky. Corey showed me.
Yeah,
everything.
Dane just jumped right into digging.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go through this shit that I had to go through. Just like you, the first 2 years of my hunting it was all fields. I hated creek hunting. I cannot do it. My eyes, I get a headache. Trying to focus.
Well, see, a lot of people that I've had ask me, you know, to show them, or like some neighbors, friends, hey, will you take me hunting? I always tell them, well, I'm going to take you to the creek first.
Yeah.
Because once you learn to find them in the creek, you can find them anywhere.
Yeah.
You're not going to miss them in the field.
That is the hardest.
And our creek hunting is totally different to if you go way south of us, and especially if you go north of us, because you have a lot of sand, mud, and pebble, light gravel mixed, where around us, all of our waterways are just a gigantic sea of gravel.
Yeah,
you don't have, the only place you have dirt is on the bank. The rest of it's gravel. And they like to hide like a diamond in the rough, and they can be anywhere. So you have to look at everything. You get to a gravel bar, you pick a section out, you grid it as tight as your eyes will run. You grid that whole that gravel bar out, and then you grid out all the water. Especially if it's seeable, because I've found so many points hiding in the water, it's ridiculous.
Man, I even if an arrowhead I find in a creek is broke, I always cherish it because I've literally maybe found 10 arrowheads ever in a creek. Yeah. And I found a lot of points. And
I found 1, 2. I found 2.
I always find them by accident too.
Well, I have at least 3 cases full of nothing but creek points, and then if I was to take the amount that I gave away,
exactly,
and then the ones I had to pass on to somebody else, I'd probably have that much more.
Yeah.
You know,
there's 1 in that case that's out of the creek. Can you guess which one?
I bet that's gonna be easy.
Well, no, I mean, it's just a matter of when he sees it. The second he sees it, he's like, oh, okay.
Well, I'm gonna double eyeball them. I think it's this one.
Oh wait, yeah, that's actually not a creek find. I found that on the sand off the shoreline, about a mile away.
Well, see, it's still a waterway find, though.
It is a waterway find.
He got you there.
It's still a waterway find.
There's another one that's
because it has that patina look to it. It's this one right here.
Unfortunately, it's not. That's a
no. That's a Burlington point, and it has that shine to it.
He put a lot of pressure on you there.
Okay. Yeah. See, now I can feel it.
Yeah.
I know it's a waterway find. But that, I mean, it's strange to pull a point out of the dirt, especially if it's made out of Burlington and have that shine luster to it.
You know, it still could have been a creek find.
Yeah.
Even back then.
Absolutely.
I found several arrowheads like that.
Absolutely. I have a few that came out of a field that were actually washed up out of the creek from it flooding
But yeah.
and throwing a bunch of gravel in the field.
Yeah, well, you know, the first time that Richard's no name, he had called me up and he's like, "Hey man, let's go open up this new site that I'm wanting to, start digging." And you've seen the video. He found that Hardin. We were joking around the Red River Hardin because I kept yelling it. It's like, oh my gosh, it's a Red River Hardin. But yeah, that Hardin was found in the river by the Indian and carried up there. I mean, it had the river stain.
Yeah.
It was made out of what would it be called? Jasper, red jasper. What is that? It's a red rock. It's all over in the river.
Yeah, it probably is more like a jasper.
Okay, because I had no idea what it is.
But it's like a lot of our pink mosaic. I have a few points where they're patinated orange color.
Yeah, okay.
Because that color didn't want to turn brown like a lot of the other regular stones do. So it kind of alters the patination color some when it's pure pink or it's pure red.
Yeah.
Because it could be a pure red mosaic hardened. That would be most likely my guess. You find a little bit of jasper here, but not very much.
Yeah.
As to compared to, you go anywhere north of us, all the way past Lincoln County, west, east to a certain amount, you're going to find a little bit of mosaic everywhere.
Yeah. Man.
Because it falls into 3 different variety of stones.
Yeah. Yeah, you know your stuff about materials.
I feel like I've adjusted his mic too much. My fault.
I didn't until after Jack Ray's book, Ozarks Chipstone Resources.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of other people in the state of Missouri, especially that are in mainstream archaeology, that consider Jack Ray the top material expert. But it was him and another guy, Bennett, that basically wrote the book. And Jack honestly doesn't even like me because I'm a digger.
Yeah.
And them guys from Missouri Archaeological Society basically don't like guys like us. And that's why I brought up us being diggers to start with. Because I've never done it to, definitely, I mean, in my eyes, life is so short that anything that is in the ground except for the dead doesn't need to belong staying in the ground.
No, not at all.
It needs to be discovered and it needs to be shared. It doesn't matter what type of stone it is. Nobody says anything to anybody when they dig up gemstones, and those people dig them all up. And you do have some collectors, but a lot of people dig them up for nothing but money.
Yeah.
Most of us diggers, even if we have to sell something down the road, that's not why we started.
No,
it's definitely not why I started. I didn't start into arrowheads for making money off them.
You did the wrong thing.
I started them because I love them. But it starts with the love for those who came before us, the people who made them.
Yeah.
Because to me, they were what's the right word?
Utopian. Maybe they had the best utopian society.
Well,
some of the.
I don't know. To me, it's just interesting to see the way. I mean,
everything was about survival.
Yeah, everything.
They didn't. I don't like a lot of people even think archaic people fought or paleo people fought amongst each other. I'm sure there were certain situations that brought that about. But I really don't think that a lot of that happened until you get into your late woodland and your Mississippian cultures. And the only reason that happened so bad was because civilization was so boomed, it was ridiculous. You couldn't go anywhere without somebody being there.
Yeah.
But with older people, later cultures, it's much more to be prosperous in life to learn from your fellow man than is to want to destroy him.
Yeah.
That's where society today has gone wrong.
Yeah.
We have all forgot the basics of survival, and it's all about me, me, me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not about the greater good for your community.
Yeah.
That was the main reason why I started sharing artifacts. And I mean, that's even before social media. I took people hunting with me.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to share that. To me, that's important.
Share the experience.
It's so much better when you take someone with you anyway. I don't like hunting alone. I never have.
I don't mind it, but yeah, it's always nicer to have some company. But I always enjoy watching other people find.
Yeah, me too.
You know, it's
Totally.
like, for me, it's like taking somebody that doesn't know how to fish well and taking them and teaching them how to fish.
Yeah.
And every time they catch a fish and they get a natural high off of it, I get a natural high off of
Exactly.
it.
It's just like you found it, you know, or caught
Absolutely.
it or whatever.
Yeah, it's the same thing with an arrowhead. You know, that's why most of us don't stop, because it's such an extreme natural high. Anything that anybody gets a natural high from, they're going to continue to do it. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, it could be somebody that likes to jump out of a plane, somebody likes to play lottery, and
Yeah.
every time they win. You know, guys that drive race cars, you know,
Yeah.
why do you think they do that?
Yeah.
Because they get an extreme natural high. And that natural high, a lot of people don't realize, comes at different levels for a major amount of people. You get some people that don't even get it.
Yeah.
You get some people that get it just a little bit. Some people that get it in a medium amount. Then you get guys like me. I get it so extreme, it affects my physical ability. It affects my mental ability. It just, you know, it was like when I, before my accident, I liked to roof more than I did framing or siding or anything else. Because I was extremely fast at it, extremely good, and I liked heights. I got a natural high from all that. At the end of the week when I got that big fat paycheck, more
Yep.
than when I got paid to be a carpenter, that was a good high too.
Yep.
I wanted that in return.
Yep. Exactly. There was a. I think we can all agree here that obviously Richard Whittle gets an extreme high in finding a nice arrowhead.
Oh,
Absolutely.
mercy.
You know what? You would only have to know this if you dig with him, because there's so much the camera don't see, obviously. But when he finds an arrowhead and it's a good one, you know it. It's funny. I mean, some of the
Yeah.
stuff he says.
Well, and a lot of my videos,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of people that watch me for years, you know, a lot of times I'll show my excitement on film. And it's not that I'm meaning to. I don't mean to do anything. I
Yeah.
just play by how it goes,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, my problem is most of, like, when I found my bone hairpin, all whatever the, you know, it's an epic find. And when I seen it laying there, I literally had to do like 4 different takes on picking that thing. I didn't touch it, but because my vulgar cussing, I was so excited, and I like to keep my page clean, you know, because there's kids that watch it and all that. But
Children.
That's
Now they're
what-
adults now, man. Think about how long you've been hunting.
yeah, well, there's, you know, to keep it PG, but man, that excitement overtakes you, and you will say some pretty ridiculous stuff.
Oh yeah, we
On
had to
camera.
clean it up. One day we had to delete videos because your grandpa was like, "What is this?" I'm like, ah, you're right. We
Well, it's
should
because of
clean
my
this
aunt. Yeah, she her kids were into my YouTube page.
up." The
and-
California kids.
Yeah, and Dane found a point, and you know, it was a nice arrowhead. It was probably in that case. It's a Etley point, and the F-bomb was thrown out a couple times, and you know, a lot of people don't like to hear that, and I completely understand that. You know.
Well, you know, being honest, a lot of times I cuss like a sailor, you know.
Yeah.
But it's kind of one of them automatic things, you know, you get around your elders.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly. You shut it off.
You shut it off. You
Yeah.
know, you don't
Or at
cuss.
church. I
You
shut
know,
it off at
church.
church. I have
Well, I
no
hope
clue.
so.
Around, you know, around young kids, you know, now when it's my 17-year-old nephew, it's a little different, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I try to give them a little bit of hardness so they don't grow up so weakness.
Yeah, exactly.
But to me, you know, that's one reason why I kept doing my edited videos. When I first started doing that, I had too many friends that said, "Hey, my kids love watching your videos with me."
Exactly.
You know, I've had like 6 different people send me videos of their kids watching my video, and they're like, I heard my kid's iPad going on. I'm like, I know that sound. That's Brooksy.
Yeah,
You know,
Oh, yeah,
my
you-
voice is pretty much unmistakable.
you're definitely well known on the YouTube world.
So, to me, that's always attracted me more to keep up the edited videos, because I know there's some people that don't like them, and that's fine. Not everybody's gonna like you, and I have never looked for anybody to actually like me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I
I just be myself.
Yeah.
And sometimes that offends people because I'm very outspoken. I don't leave nothing unspoken. I believe everything should be said as long as it's the truth. I mean, doesn't matter if it's ugly truth, it's always better than a pretty little lie,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Lying doesn't get you anywhere. Like I said, even if the truth is bad, at least it's the truth.
Yeah.
Because eventually, even if that truth hurts a little bit at the moment, later on down the line, a lie is going to hurt a lot worse.
Of course. I mean,
Yeah.
that goes back. I mean, you can look at that biblically if that's what you're into, or anything.
No, I'm a spiritual guy.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, lying has never obviously been the right key to hang on
I would say
anything.
when
But it's very important for me to do things, appropriately, systematically. That way it attracts that younger generation, because one of these days we're going to be gone.
Yeah.
And we have to leave that to somebody behind. It's kind of like my little tattoo here, the Circle of Life tattoo. It's been made in petroglyphs from one end of the country to the other, from 600 years old to some of them being dated as late as 6,000 years old.
Yeah.
If you pick up any gastropod, where do you usually find it? You usually find it in a waterway.
Yeah.
Okay, it's millions of years old. That's where they had to get that from, because they were always finding them gastropods that has a little circle on it. They knew that was a life that existed once upon a time.
Huh. I never thought about it
So
like that.
the circle of life always continues. It never stops. And as a human being, whether it was 10,000 years ago or especially today, the most important thing a person can do is add positive measure to the circle of life.
Yeah.
That's passing down any knowledge you've gained from other people, your knowledge from your own experience, no matter what it is. If it's your job, some kind of hobby you're into, everything you've ever learned. To pass it down is the most important thing anyone can ever do. That's how ancient man survived, progressed. That's why we're here today.
Yeah. I always think about, like, when we're digging, you dig up their fire rings and stuff, and you see the charcoal in there, and you always just wonder, like, what kind of stories were told around that fire pit. And because you find not only the fire pits, but you find the arrowheads around it, just like they left it.
Exactly.
So you always wonder, these people that hate on digging, and they think that you're throwing away so much information that's in the dirt, which, to them there could be, but to me it's the stories that reveals before my eyes, like that fire pit,
Well, see, I have a lot of digging information recorded.
Yeah.
On film and on hard copy, written down. But for like my own site information, I can't let a lot of that stuff out until I'm done with it.
Yeah.
Because for one thing, it'll give the site away, and then everybody will want to look for it, and most people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
There's a camera everywhere
Yeah.
to watch you, besides my mean Russian neighbor, who will basically dig a hole and probably bury you if he catches you there.
Exactly.
But
yeah, I just always got off on wondering what kind of stories were told around that fire, because where you dig it up at, and you kind of get the ideas where the houses were, so that this was the main fire pit that was in between all houses, so this was a gathering point. And you can tell that by how many arrowheads are around it, and the tools, and even bones. Let me clarify bones as in animal bones. I mean,
yeah.
people always wait for you to say that so they can jump your ass about it.
Yeah. If you're digging up artifacts, 90% of the time, you have to be in a camp.
Yeah.
They didn't bury all their dead with artifacts.
No.
You get to your woodland and Mississippian cultures, they did that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Your later cultures, you have some sites that had that, but a lot of them didn't. You know? And most everywhere they had a camp, somewhere way off to the distance, they had a place they buried their dead.
Yep, every time.
It's like a shelter. A lot of people think all shelters are all burial sites.
Exactly.
No, that was a living room.
Yeah.
It's just like nowadays, my dad dies, I'm not going to want to open my floor up and bury him in it.
Yeah.
I'm going to go bury him if I have to out in the yard, 20 paces away from the house.
It depends on how he died, though, right? Was that John Wayne Gacy buried all his friends?
Well, that's a little different there, Dave. That's a little different.
The way I've always seen shelters is that, when you take a shelter that you're finding Daltons to the bird points, so you're getting from every region of time period arrowhead. So you got to expect or suspect that at least out of, let's say, 12,000 years of occupation, that maybe there was in one day of all that, one day, which is nothing, that someone could have buried some.
Well, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
But that right
because
there,
another 100 years go by, natural dirt fill
exactly,
in, and it covers them up. Nobody else knows.
And there it is, and then it's a living space again.
And then see another thing we know about shelters, because especially from guys that haven't been digging very long, and I see it on YouTube a lot, and I've heard it a lot, they'll find charcoal from one end in it to the other, and they always constantly think they're digging up a fire pit. Well, a lot of people forget that those people wore nothing but hides, you know, whether they took fur off of them for the wintertime, you know, fletched all the fur off, so all they have is buckskin or animal skin. As to in the wintertime, you're going to want that hair still on the hide. So, and they didn't have shampoo back then, so they're going to have lice all the time.
Yeah.
When you live in a shelter for a while, all that lice is going to do nothing but multiply on the ground.
Yeah.
If you bring in new bedding material or, you know, whatever, you know, a bunch of weeds, a bunch of hay, you put it on the floor, you burn it off. It kills everything in there.
Yeah.
Then they bring in fresh dirt.
Yep.
And they cover that up. Then they're able to put in their new beddings, they're able to put in their new fire pits.
Yep.
And that's one reason why you're going to find charcoal
From
in
one end to
little
the other.
amounts from one end to the other. Now when you do hit, because I have dug a couple fire pits, the best one I ever dug come from the Booster Overhang, where my eccentrics are out of, Dixons, some Medinas, a big table rock, and some broken Entleys we were just starting to get into. It was a fire pit that was probably 15 inches in diameter, had really nice shaped sandstones there,
Yeah.
had charcoal out of it. I pulled out the size of my hand,
Yeah.
but I still have in
I
a
do,
plastic
I do
container.
too. I have a piece of charcoal from Land of Lost that you can actually still see the grains circle of wood where it didn't completely burn. I mean, you talk about a preserved fire pit. It was insane, you know?
Yeah, and I've kept that charcoal from all them places I've dug, because if I do run into a decent mainstream archaeologist guy that says, well, hey, I can take that for you and have it carbon dated.
Yeah, you're
I'm
gonna
gonna
know-
say, well, absolutely take it.
Yeah, you're
you
gonna
know,
know
I'll
what
give
time
you all the
period.
information that came with it, you know.
The author of that book, you said, is he local?
Jack Ray,
Yeah, where
that
that?
does Ozark Chipstone Resources. He's from MOSS, Missouri Archaeological Society. That's out of Springfield.
So,
Now, like our show that we usually have,
mhm.
that's usually the Greater St.
St.
Louis
Louis, yeah.
Archaeological
Yeah.
Society. And as long as the guy is doing it ethical, like most of us do, they have no problem with us. You know, but it's a lot like my site. My site one day is going to be nothing but a yard and a house built on there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So if we didn't acquire it and do what we're doing, that's a site going to be lost.
Yeah.
You know, and then a lot of people, like I said, they like to hate on us, but let's look at all the sites that are lost from construction,
Oh yeah, that's a big
road construction, housing construction. A lot of them don't even get an archaeologist to show up because they see it and they go, oh, if we say anything to anybody, we're going to be shut down.
Shut down, yeah.
You know, until they do their job and then tell us what we can or can't do. So they just bury the sites, they cover them up. And you guys know we all have friends from all over the country. You know, I know quite a few guys in California. Oh, I can't mention his name, but that guy knows a lot of people out there. And for years, California has been putting parking lots out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
off the side of freeways. You know why? Because they're big archaeological sites.
And
You know,
there's
they have warehouses just full of artifacts. You have so many museums that are full of artifacts, and they're all in the basement in a box. Nobody's ever going to see them.
never.
The only people that get to study those pieces are the people that have access to
Yeah.
that basement
People
boxes.
with a PhD. So that, I mean, you have to be high up to see all that stuff. What I think that all those artifacts sitting down there, maybe at some point we're gonna create an artifact museum. Kind of like we have a Bible museum. We have all these different museums. So just create an artifact museum and show every point they have down there. I mean, not we, us, maybe us, but at some point, like your house.
But see, the problem is there's a lot of those archaeological people that would rather keep it in the basement because that's what makes them feel better. They don't think that, you know, someone digs
Oh
it.
yeah, I've seen the hate and jealousy come from them
Yeah.
so bad. It's because they don't take their finds home.
No.
You know, and I know something was like, well, I'm not jealous. Well, I've seen it from you online,
Yeah.
As some guy from Virginia who's a mainstream archaeologist try and argue to me about our laws on hunting waterways, when it doesn't matter if it's what kind of hunting law it is, I have to make it a priority to know it.
Yeah.
And it's always updated.
Yeah.
It's just like here recently, Missouri had to make all navigatable waterways, even by a kayak, in the summertime, is open to public. It doesn't matter if they own both sides of the waterway. On the Gasconade River, between Dixon and St. Roberts, there were some people floating. They got out. They were hunting a gravel bar. This guy actually had a no trespassing sign in the middle of the gravel bar with a 4-foot fence around it. He came down there, tried to run them off. When people got mouthy, he shot one of them. That guy is in jail now.
I know
that's murder. Shooting somebody, if you're not in fear for your life, you have no business shooting somebody.
Absolutely not.
My Uncle Randy actually knew, him and his wife know, are friends with the wife, that it was her husband that got shot. Got shot right in the head over that.
For nothing.
Yeah.
And see, that's just not right. Even if somebody does trespass on somebody else's property, it's like mine, we're going to call the cops.
Yeah.
We're not going to mess around. We have you on film.
But what
it doesn't matter.
You
don't, there's no reason to ever do that to anybody. But when that happened, Missouri had to make it very strict as to what is and what isn't the law when it comes to waterways.
Yeah, they did
whether people float it to just float it, whether people float it to fish it, walk it to fish it, or walk it for artifacts. And you boys know I've been fishing my whole life. I couldn't fathom the points. I probably walked right over for 10 years of fishing them creeks before I ever started rock hunting in them.
Yeah, exactly.
And there wasn't a creek I didn't go down, and a lot of times run into somebody that want to run me off. What are you doing to my creek? Your creek.
Exactly.
It's state creek. It's state property.
Well, actually, me and Richard and Allie were hunting one time, and we were down on a nice site, and they had some stairs coming from their house down into the river, and the wife of whoever owned that house up there got into it with my wife, with Allie, over about who, you cannot be on this property, this private property, and we were in the river bottom, and we were just like, no, you can't kick us out of here. I mean, she said, I'm going to call the cops. I said, call them,
Yeah, waste their time, because they're never coming back to your house once you call them.
Yeah, I mean, you can't, especially the river, you can't kick nobody off that river.
Have you ever had a gun pointed at you, Corey?
Yes.
During arrowhead hunting?
Yes, on the Osage, on the river.
What about Deadwood? What happened there?
Well, walking along, some duck hunters, they got they had it figured out that they knew the law on what they're.
Didn't they win something?
No, they didn't win at all.
They won a radio thing saying, hey, you guys can be the first ones in the area, but that's not how it works.
Okay, so what happened is they're teal hunting, which is, so what they do, they put deposits down on stretches of land that they're actually renting them out so they're the only person that can hunt it, them and whoever they bring. But the law states now in teal season, it's just like any other hunting season, you get out there before the sun comes up.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want the element of surprise. When the sun is over the horizon, when the first light shines, their deposit is officially over, and then it becomes public again. So the only thing they're renting is the dusk of the morning. Now, the time when me and Richard got there, it was probably around 9 o'clock. I mean, the sun was well up, but they still thought that they had clear rent. They had stuff over us, and they tried to kick us off. Well, of course, I argued that, and and he threatened to shoot me with a shotgun over it, and of course I'm not going to die over something. I mean,
when you were going to kick his ass there,
right? I was going through the grass after him. I was going down there, but that's when he told me, because they were out in the water, and he told me if I got any closer, he was going to shoot me, and I was like, it's not worth my life.
No, and a shotgun shot.
And of course Richard just keeps walking. He don't even know what's going on. He don't even hear what's going on. And then they started accusing me for going to check my pot plants, like I was out there growing or something, And I was just like, what the heck is this dude's problem, So what does he do? Yeah, he calls game warden on me, and course, game warden shows up, and he was a nice guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't take our arrowheads even. He said, he explained to us. He asked. His main interest was how we knew there's artifacts there. Like, what made you, just like anybody other.
Yeah.
I get asked that question. How do you know there's artifacts there? Well, when you arrowhead hunt so many times, you know what to look for and what's going to be a perfect spot. I seen that spot from a mile away. I mean, I was way up that creek, and I said, man, that is going to be a killer spot right there. I had no idea that there was. I had no idea, but you just know what to look for, and sure enough, it was a killer spot. And yeah, he just told me I didn't break no laws. I broke a code, and he let me know what was going on. Super nice guy. Last time I ever seen him. I mean, so to me, it's not a big deal. Who made the big deal was the hunter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I want to be respectful to hunters, all right? And if they're trying to, and by the way, you're not feeding your family on teal. Sorry.
Yeah.
Now, if I walk up on a deer hunter, I'm more apologetic. You're out there shooting birds, and you're not gonna eat a teal. I mean, some people do. Don't get me wrong.
It's
Some
more of a
people eat
trophy
teal.
sport.
It's a trophy sport. During deer season, we don't even go to the woods. If I go to the woods, I'm going with my bow.
I'm going to deer hunt.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm not going arrowhead hunt.
I would never go digging or whatever during deer season. Because these people are trying to feed
Well,
their
I
family.
do on my own property.
Yeah, on your own property, you can do whatever you want. And this year, I actually, I got yelled at from the highway by a deer hunter. And I was deer hunting. I'm like, what are you doing? I'm wearing orange.
Yeah.
I'm out here. I'm not shooting the small. They were yelling at me because I didn't shoot this little doe. I'm not shooting that baby doe. That's kind of disrespectful, but you don't want to be disrespectful to hunters. And a majority of people who hunt arrowheads in mid-Missouri or Missouri stop at, like, what is it, December 15th or whenever the hunting, November 15th.
Yeah, in November.
No, a lot of guys will hunt during bow season. I do. You know,
Yeah,
but
bow
that's
season's
because
minor.
where you're mostly not supposed to be hunting it inside the creek, you know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to rifle season, yeah, no, I don't go. If I do want to go during black powder season, I usually go where I know no one else is going to be at.
Yeah.
You know, if I go there and it's one of my favorite parking spots, the first place I always go to, and I see, you know, there's a vehicle parked there and I don't see them in the creek right away, well, then I assume they're deer hunting and I go on to the next spot.
Yeah, exactly.
But, you know, it's like last summer, I had one of my first, I mean, I've had a few altercations with other people, but this one got pretty heated. You know, I was in the same waterway I've been hunting for 20-some years almost. And me and this guy have had, you know, little altercations before. He's just really rude. Think he owns the world or something. And, you know, he comes up in his tractor after he's been watching me walk back and forth, pacing the gravel bar for a while. And he says, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just looking for rocks, you know, looking for them collectible rocks.
Yeah.
He's like, collectible rocks? I'm like, yeah, artifacts, arrowheads, you know. And he's like, well, that's fine as long as you stay in the water. I own both sides of the creek, so I own that gravel bar. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but you do not. I know my Missouri state laws. And he just went to rattling off like crazy, cussing, being really vulgar, being rude. Then he stops and he gets on his phone and he calls the local sheriff.
Oh,
He's
God.
like, I've got Mike Brooks down here and he's trespassing on my property. And I'm like, what? I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, all right, I just get in my kayak and go. And he's like, well, the cops are going to meet you. And I'm like, well, good. That way we can get this resolved once and for all. Well, before I even got back to the bridge of my kayak, of course, I'm on my phone. I'm calling the county sheriff.
Yeah.
Like, look, this guy, I won't mention his name on here, comes down to the creek, asks me what I'm doing. I explain it to him, tell him I know I'm in my state law rights, and I'm like, he's threatening me. You know, he had a sidearm, he never did pull it, but he definitely put his hand on it over top of his shirt.
Yeah.
To me, that's a threatening action.
Absolutely.
You know, especially when I'm not carrying a firearm.
Yeah.
You know, or showing a firearm or whatever. You know, that's why if you do that and you actually pull your firearm out and even threaten pointing at somebody or whatever, and they're not threatening your life, that's a felony.
That's a brandishing a weapon. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You better be in fear.
It's just wrong.
So did it get resolved?
Yeah, the cops came and told them, you can't do that.
Okay.
Don't ever do it again.
Good.
You know, there's another spot I go to. He's a preacher. You know, he thinks he owns the creek. He's called on all kinds of people. Eventually, the county had to go down there and tell him, you do not own this waterway.
Yeah.
You do not own the bridge. You do not own 8 feet off of the highway.
Yeah,
that is all state-owned property.
Yeah.
They have access to come and go, and they have free will to be in it up to the high water mark. That means basically all the bank, until you can smack your hand on top of their land, that's where you're not supposed to be.
Yeah. Well, the Osage River is the same
inside.
way.
Oh, absolutely.
They protect themselves like that because they were saying that they have easements out of the banks even, so farmers can't plant their crop right on the edge and then it falls into the river. So that way they can't make a case against it because they're basically saying, well, we technically own that, an easement, you know, because there's so many farmers that are doing that right now. And, you know, I don't even
Well,
care.
it's like cattle farmers. Missouri made it a while back. You're not supposed to be letting your cattle get into the creek
Yeah.
because, you know, they get in there and they leave feces
Yeah,
and
it's
urine,
disgusting.
and it's actually damaging to the ecosystem
Yeah.
inside the waterway. But there's a lot of farmers that don't pay no attention to that. Nobody calls in on them. You know, no state official notices it. So it goes, you know, unseen is unheard, undone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So let's just face the facts that most farmers don't like artifact hunters. And anytime they can get the law involved, they always do, it seems like.
Some of them, you know, you get half, the other half, they don't care. You know, I run into all kinds of farmers, you know, a lot of them know me by now. And they're like, yeah, I look for them all the time, but I can't ever find one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm thinking, okay, you look for 20 minutes and you're done, you know.
Yeah.
You can't jump into a waterway and just find one in 20 minutes. Sometimes it may take hours.
Oh yeah, for
You know,
sure.
you may have to have a break every so often, sit down, get back up and go back at it again.
Yeah.
You know, I can't count days
Not
where
us.
I spent 4 or 5 hours hunting and then, you know, finally before I'm gonna turn around find something,
Yeah.
you know, and then maybe if you always leave a path on the way back out, sometimes you'll find something you didn't find on the way in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't really relate to much creek hunting. You gotta remember, most creeks I hunt are only this wide. And they're-
Yeah, I know, I've seen your ditches.
Yeah, they're niches. So, but they're awesome because they're all mud, and then there's
Oh, absolutely.
boom rock piles every time. Man, there's a rock catch or a waterfall.
Catch them. Catch them before they get to the creek. Don't let them get
Dude,
there.
Waterfalls. That is where your points are at.
I'd give anything to hunt them kind of creeks, but I don't feel like driving an hour, 2 hours away when all I gotta do is drive 20 minutes
Yeah.
from my house and I'm in any creek.
See, that's my
I can
problem.
be in 6 different creeks within 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem is I have so many sites around here, but I don't know why, but I always seem like I'm going. You know, I'll drive. I don't care to drive an hour to go
No.
hunt. You know,
I'll
because
drive to another state, bro.
yeah, I mean, some of the ditches I hunt, I love them so much. They're so freaking good. There's so much.
Dovetail ditch.
Yeah, I mean, well, the time period. There's just everything.
Well, you have to look at it like this. A lot of them ditches are old springs that dried up.
Yeah.
The only time they have running water in them nowadays is when we have
A flood.
big,
Big
heavy
rain,
rains,
yeah.
you know. Otherwise, most of them was a spring
Yeah.
that, you know, just eventually they dry up.
Yeah.
So they were camping along that because the spring was within walking distance. Doesn't matter if they were 100 yards or 500 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, and another thing that's cool about those ditches is now you don't even just find arrowheads, you find old bottles, you find, you know, old early settlement things. I found old coins, you know, Indian head pennies and stuff like that. And see, I love finding stuff just like that, just as much as I like finding arrowheads. Like if I find a nice 1800s bottle, I'm just as happy as if I found a nice arrowhead.
Oh yeah, if I could find that stuff all the time, I'd be happy with it too.
Yeah, like I
You know?
I know where bottle dumps are that I go digging. You know, you're not gonna find no Indian artifacts. It's clearly bottle dumps, but
Yeah,
to
and
find
it's all
a-
historical.
Yeah, just to
you
find
know.
a nice old bottle. Me and my wife, we love old bottles, and we have a nice bottle collection because I found several old 1800s bottle dumps, and we just love it.
Well, there's some people that's all they dig for.
Yeah, bottles.
You know, they pivy dig.
Yeah.
I digging old pivies. and
What's that
stuff
guy in
like that.
Kentucky? Oh man, New Relic. New Relic?
He's not in Kentucky.
Where St. Louis?
St. Louis,
Yeah.
Illinois.
He's got a
Maryland.
spot where he
Yeah.
picks up
Bottles.
bottles, and then the same day he
Marbles.
pulls out a sweet like 6-inch Atlee.
Oh yeah. Well, what he's in is inner city creeks is what he's in.
Oh really?
But no matter where you're at up there, you're in a hot spot. I mean, you're not only are you in the archaic stuff, but the Dovetails, St. Charles is just boom right there, and then you get into the Cahokia, which was massive. So if you're within anywhere in that vicinity, you're gonna find artifacts, and yeah, that's when you get into the early settlements, and all of it's cool. You can't like Richard he liked arrowheads. He didn't care much about anything else, bottles, stuff like that. He's always giving me old bottles, and if he finds a cool coin, every once in a while he would give it to me. Not his silver ones. I wish he would, but he don't. But yeah, he all he likes is arrowheads, which is fine. I mean, if that's all you're into, then that's it. But it's all cool. It's a nice little pre-form deal. Is that a recent find?
No, that's actually a gift from a friend.
That's a nice one. Nice and
A
thin.
lot of that. Some of that, about half of that on there is my finds, and the other half is gifts.
I keep looking up at that case there behind you with the Sedalias and the Atlees.
Yeah, that case looks sad compared to what it should, but
Well, that Sedalia in the top left corner, that's yeah, the one at the very far
that's
left.
conglomeratic. That's what I call AKA snakeskin stipple.
Is okay? That's the snakes. Okay,
Yeah. It's actually conglomeratic comes only in one variety.
can I
and
see?
that
Can I see
only-
that case?
Absolutely. It only
Then we
comes
can
in
get that
it
case.
only comes in Just City Church. And to be conglomeratic, it has to have the conglomerate circles completely through it
Okay.
on both sides.
Yeah.
But the thing about a lot of our materials, Just City Church, Chateau, you can get any two varieties or more from a single nodule that will gradate into each other. So you may have a point that's half conglomeratic, like this one, and this tip where it's translucent isn't conglomeratic, so it's ellipsoidal variety of Just City Church, which is like what my Dixon is made out of over there. That's what that
Yeah.
point that Smith is made out of, ellipsoidal variety Just City Church. By Jack Ray, that is Missouri's top nappable stone. It's the top quality.
Is this all from your dirty hole?
Absolutely.
Man, look at this. Some of the nice points in there.
That's a Chesterfield.
That's awesome. I found a nice Chesterfield. I found it in the field actually, and it's perfect. And then I found a Sedalia not too far away from it.
See, and then like a lot of these from our property, there's been so many where the tips aren't finalized. They're kind of missing.
Is that
You don't hardly find Sedalia or a lot of lance type points with actual true impact breaks.
yeah?
There has not been only but one point that had a Sedalia point that looked like it had an actual impact break like a lot of other dark points will show. Mostly because when they break from their velocity, whether they hit their target or they hit the ground, they actually break in three sections.
Yeah.
They break the tip off, they break the midsection, leaving you the base. That's why we have handfuls and handfuls of bases
Yeah.
and nothing else.
Yeah.
Well, most of everything from the site, not just mine, but the Cucumber, Richard's new no-name site. When you find a lot of your tips and midsections, after you know it, the technology and how those points are for Sedalias, you will hardly never find midsections or tips, only bases. That's because when they break, I can't remember exactly what the guy called that certain type of impact break.
Man.
But I think a lot of them points, like that conglomeratic one, if you feel down the edge of it, you can tell they were resharpening it.
Yeah.
A lot of times that tip may have broke off while they were still in the napping process of it, waiting till they wanted to finally use it and actually throw a good tip on it before they took it out. Or
So these, this is what you would call an atlatl spear.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, the atlatl, anything get into the atlatl stuff, you know,
Well, that was probably even used down into the woodland edges. I mean,
that's what they say as far as the books, you know, it gets into early woodland even. You know, so like your right side notches and all that, you can tell they had to be, you know.
oh yeah, they were still at
They had to be atlatl spears. Because man, I have found some killer right side.
A lot of us try and drop the spear word and use more of the dart term,
Yeah.
you know, and that's actually the stick, the river cane, a small sapling they cut down and use. Because around here we didn't have a lot of river cane.
Yeah.
Now you go south of us and you go
Yeah.
north of us, they do. Our river cane around here, if you find it, it's scraggly. It ain't worth a darn. So they probably had to use a lot of sapling trees.
Well, you know that they probably used a lot of what beaver chewing. Look, think of all the times you're out walking and you see a beaver chewed stick and it is perfectly straight because the beaver chewed it all the limbs off perfectly. You know they had to take advantage of that.
Sure.
Because some of them were, you know, up to 6 feet long, and that's what the standard size for an atlatl spear. You
A
know.
dart, yeah.
Yeah, a dart was about 6 feet long.
My best walking sticks are beaver sticks.
Yeah. You know, and at our woodland site, the Land of the Lost, you know, I found that that's what I think is a snakehead is what they call them. You know, it's designed and all that, but I'm almost certain it's a snakehead, which is the spur for the dart to fit in. And even if you put it on, because it has all these rings around it, you know, and like they would have wrapped around the stick, you know, and when you put it on something flat, it goes perfectly and it's kind of flat on the bottom and then it arches up. So it had a perfect hook or perfect point to put something in. So
yeah, I think a lot of them don't get found, you know, because they probably made more out of deer antler.
yeah, exactly.
That wasn't gonna last.
Yeah.
It gets lost. It's small compared to something made out of a hard stone.
Yeah.
Especially where you get in states that don't have a lot of hard stone. You know, we do have some here in Missouri, but like if you take us compared to even our northern neighbor, Iowa,
Yeah.
you know, especially like Ohio, certain parts of Kentucky, you know, where Kentucky and Ohio meet, the hard stone is just ridiculous.
I know they're always finding hard. They don't even seem like they get excited over it. Like, oh, another axe head. I'm thinking, God, I've only found one axe my whole career of hunting.
And I've got a few, but
They're hard to find. And the one I did find wasn't even made out of hard stone. It was made out of like a normal rock. I don't know. It was weird.
well, I have one up there. It's made out of a type of Missouri chert, and it's as rough as all can be, but it's still a full grooved axe.
Yep.
And it was my first find, and actually I found it in the creek. And before that, I always told myself, I wonder if I'll actually spot an axe in the creek and know, you know, go, oh, I just, you know, not dead in front of you, but from a distance.
Yeah.
And actually, I did find that one from a distance. I'd stopped, looked around, and about 10 yards from me, there it lay, you know, up in a bunch of rock. And I'm like, that's an axe. I
That's
can
awesome.
see that groove from here.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, and I already knew it wasn't a normal hard stone, you know, which back then I didn't know anything about material.
Yeah. I found a broken one out at the Cucumber that would have been out of this world if it had been it was so polished, it was shiny. It's almost like a mirror, and it was made out
Oh,
of.
didn't you show that in video?
Shiny.
Oh yeah. Actually, you know,
I think I remember you.
Gary Robinette, he was part of the Cucumber, and he loved it so much because it came from the Cucumber. I just gave it to him, you know, because it was broken. I found so many broken axes, but he really loved it. But it was made out of, it was like a dark green granite, but man, it would have been so awesome. And when I was digging it, I was like, oh shit, Richard, you might want to come over here and look at this. And all you could see was the groove and like the axe. But sure enough, as soon as I just hit it, it fell out broke. But man, we were excited over that.
I guess there's a time limit on.
the
There's a time limit on
page.
Instagram on live, so we're going to live again.
Up there in that Hearthstone case there, that pipe looking deal,
Yeah.
what is that again?
That's actually a piece of Burlington. It come from southeast Missouri, and it's a good chance that it could be from historical era, but it was never made to be a pipe, because being a carver of stone myself,
Yeah.
before you're going to finally shape a pipe, you have to drill the holes, especially the stem hole.
Yeah.
That mouth has been shaped
Same sheesh.
where you couldn't shape it and then drill a hole in it. And then the bottom of it's concaved.
Concave.
Yeah, like a point.
Yeah.
You know, it has that concaveness in it. So if you were to actually tie that onto a stick, it would fit perfect. You know, so it could have been an atlatl spur.
Ceremonial.
Yeah, could have been ceremonial. You know, that's the thing about like banner stones, okay? If it's already been proven by the World Atlatl Association and other guys I know that do nothing but have experimented with atlatl and dart points and everything for years, you do not need a banner stone on an atlatl to be effective.
Yeah.
It actually takes down your velocity.
Yeah.
It takes away from your velocity, takes away from your power. I think most banner stones were some type of like a status symbol, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Or they could have been for, you know, certain type of ceremonies. A lot of people think, well, they didn't have ceremonies back then, you know, especially the later, older, archaic cultures or, you know, even transitional paleo or whatever. Well, to me, that's really kind of small-minded thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to like say that to offend anybody. It's
Yeah.
just honest how I see it. From petroglyphs and pictographs, we know that they were definitely spiritual people.
Yeah.
How could
You
you
know,
not?
you take any time you have, especially back then that were spiritual, you know, when is going to be the best time that they're always going to have ceremonies? During births, during deaths, before a hunt, after a good hunt, you know. So as to if that banner stone actually fit, you know, because they'll have drilled holes, most of them. You know,
Yeah.
you do find some that are undrilled or partially drilled. You know, if they actually fit that and put that on an atlatl, it probably wasn't used for hunting use. It was probably more used for during ceremony time with whoever the shaman was in the group, you know, doing a dance and telling a story of the hunt.
Yeah.
You know, if that wasn't the case, then there would be 1,000 times more banner stones found than what there has been. In
Yeah.
Missouri, it's only, I think, like 470 something recorded banner stone finds.
Yeah, they're rare.
When you have 1,000,000 artifacts, and that's probably me undershooting that number by far.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's kind of like Dr. Dennis Stanford of the Smithsonian Society has said.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Even if you take all the people's collections that have never been seen, we have probably only scratched 10% of the surface of actually what is actually out there when it comes to everything that Stonehenge Man left behind.
Yeah.
It's like
And
outer space.
You have to take that into great consideration because there is sites everywhere that has never been touched or never been opened up.
Yeah.
Even people that know that they have artifacts on their property, a lot of times because they have a big spring.
Yeah.
That's what made the dirty hole what it is. There's a spring right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You
Really?
it
I
ran
didn't know
it
there was-
ran for millions of years. Yeah, they buried it up when they
That's a shame.
did the property. You know, all the trees were taken out and everything.
Yeah.
And there's a ditch that runs from both sides once you get to a certain degree. And I've been down both of them, and it has rocks in it that have been water worn for 1,000,000 years.
That's cool. That's awesome. I didn't know that. I had no idea.
I've never been there. You pointed out to me like, hey, that's where they have
Yeah,
that digging spot. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, cool, good for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a known spot. You know, this spot's been known for way before you guys. I mean, that's been a digging spot for a long time.
Yeah.
You know, a long time.
It's producing nice.
And even if you didn't know it was a digging spot, when you're going down through there, if you're a big arrowhead hunter, you could be like, oh, I bet there's something up there.
Yeah.
Or that looks like a good spot.
It
you
does.
know.
It's a perfect spot. It's in a it's in a perfect saddle. There's a creek coming in all different directions right there.
A
So
good creek, too, with
Yeah.
good flint.
yeah, and it's up there in that good Sedalia land. You know, you're right off the prairie. You know, that's
Well,
what.
see,
It's part of the pie.
I've been meaning to add that post to Instagram, and I haven't got a chance to yet. All I got to do is go to my own page and copy it and stick it on there. But I put an evaluation of what I think about the Sedalia culture, and most of it comes from my own experience of other hunters, and everything that I've read that's been written by both archaeological societies and even older books. We call it the Great Pie. The Great Pie exists in between the Osage River and the Missouri River.
Yeah.
I basically live right on the Osage River.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hunt both sides of it.
Yeah.
You get inside the pie, anywhere, and you have great numbers of, what actually archaeologists nowadays call us the Smetley area.
Yeah.
You have our area is the Smetley area. You go northwest of us, that's all the Nebo Hill area. Same culture. You go northeast, like towards St. Louis, they call it the Trinity
Okay.
Sedalia. We're Smetley Sedalias. They're basically they're all the same culture, but for some reason, depending on what they had for material, different living situations and everything, they had some type of difference in between them. But you get on this side of the Osage River, you'll find Etleys, you'll find Smiths, you'll find a Melville once in a while. You hardly ever find a Sedalia.
I know, isn't that crazy?
So there was something going on in between those two great big rivers. And then everybody has to account that, of course, we don't actually know what those waterways were like back then.
Yeah.
We do know from ice core records that during the middle Archaic stages, there was a big drought, but those droughts probably came and went,
Yeah.
But they know for a long time span, there was a great drought. So that caused everybody to live closer to the water.
Yeah. I have my theories on the Sedalia point. What I think is when I look at a Sedalia, I see its size, I see the grinding, I know it's a lance point for sure. And to me, it's, because of the size, I think it's for a bigger game. Now, this is a proven fact
Buffalo?
that buffalo will not get out of a prairie. Like, if there's hills, they will not go down the hills because they're like cattle. Their depth perception's off.
Look inside the Great Pie.
The Great Pie is full of nothing but prairie. I mean, so...
Well, you do get some hills,
Some.
especially the closer you get to the Osage River.
But get on Google Maps and it falls off. I mean, it's prairie and it falls right down into the rivers. Yeah, now there are hills there.
If you follow that pie all the way out, where does it lead to? It leads to Kansas, which is nothing but prairie. Those bison herds back then were probably unbelievably so large.
Oh, yeah.
We probably can't even fathom the amount. I mean, if you look at the millions that they killed when the white man showed up,
Yeah.
Tonka.
Yeah.
there was probably 3 times that
Yeah.
back then, especially during like the Archaic period, especially during the late Archaic period.
Yep.
That is not an animal that you are going to want to get close to try and harvest. You're
Heck
going to have
no.
to do it from a distance. You're going to have a lot of people.
And you're going to have a point of size big enough to do damage.
Yes, and that's where, like, people from the World Adelaide Association, everything they teach, it really comes into play because a lot of them guys can accurately, within a 6-inch circle, nail the target from 100 yards, and some guys even better than that.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah,
so that's a
they're good.
football field.
Yeah.
So if you take a lot of our hill areas, and you have these little cuts and valleys, they had to do was send one little group to move that buffalo into that little valley area, or you have, your clan on both sides of the hill,
Yeah.
and everybody has 6 darts in
Yeah.
their hand ready to
You're
throw.
going to kill that thing.
They're gonna kill some buffalo.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna you're gonna have to have a good penetrating, point. And that's where the Sedalia comes in. Now, you do get some Sedalias that will have fine edge work on them. But for anybody that's found a lot of Sedalias, Etleys, Smiths, Melvilles, all that same culture on the same camp, all your Etleys, Smiths, and Sedalias have very fine edge work compared to the Sedalia. It's usually a lot larger because that is a blunt force point.
Yeah.
It was not made to cut. It's made to penetrate and do damage.
Yeah, do it's damage like that.
As much as damage as possible.
Yeah, so what not a better area than the pie, the prairies of where they fall into the hills to get something cornered in one of these valleys and all that. And then, like you said, once you get like the No Name site, you know, that is literally on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are signs. He is finding some signs of some Sedalias. Now, within, you know, just 5 miles of there, I have found Sedalia points. So,
But you're on the other side of the river.
on the other side of the river, and then from, you know, let's say 3 or 4 miles from where I found my Sedalia is Eldon, you know, and boom, Eldon is right there on the, you know, the plateau of where the
Yeah, where it really starts to flatten out.
yeah, where it starts. Now from Deadwood, you know, you're finding lance points like crazy down there, and within, you know, a 2-minute drive, you're up in the flatlands, and I mean it's a lot flat. It's flat up there.
Well, it's like the guy that did my tattoos. I met him way before social media, and as we got to be friends, you know, he let me know that he was on a good site, and it actually basically sits right on the Osage River, just like the No Name site.
Yep.
But it is inside the pie. It is on the north side of the river.
Yep.
He has hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of knife points, Sedalias, Atlee Smiths. That site produced very few Sedalias, but when he did find one, it was always a high quality piece.
Yeah.
He had quite a few brokes, but nothing to the spectrum of what has come off the cucumber or what's come off the dirty hole. It's come off of other sites, you know, that I've read about inside the pie. Guys I know that don't even do social media.
Yeah.
You know, they don't do nothing but dig. They're digging down into the tan clay and pulling out bucket loads of Sedalias.
Yeah. Gosh, bucket loads.
Yeah.
I wish. I wish.
Like a bucket. Well, yeah, I mean, this one show I went to, these guys had very few, you know, Etleys and Smiths and maybe I think one Melville compared to the amount of the Sedalias they had. Then you look at Spike's property down there around Truman area, down around the Warsaw area.
I got to dig. Yeah,
That's
we
on
dug
the
there that
inside
day.
of the pie. That place was so full of full Sedalias, it was ridiculous.
It was a good spot. Remember that day we went down there digging?
Absolutely.
It was a lot of fun, but we all knew that we were in the wrong spot. The first thing I said is like, okay, Spike, where was the Bannerstone found? And he kept dancing around that, like, oh yeah.
Well, the thing about that property is a lot of it had been dug in the big middle part.
Yeah, and
So
plowed.
all you had basically left that was good area was the edge of the camps, or if you dug in the middle, a lot of times you're digging in a spot where somebody just missed because they didn't dig it
Yeah,
efficiently.
well, around that foundation, you know, right? He was finding Sedalias butt up against that
That's
foundation.
right. I dug most of the day I was there.
Yeah.
around that old house.
And I didn't find much that day. I found a big broken alley, and I started finding Sedalia parts when I got close to that foundation. I was like, I'm going over there. Obviously, he's found a bunch over there, but on the back side of the property where the fence went across, that's where they were digging.
Absolutely. That's
And
where
I don't-
George is at.
Yeah, well, they go over there and they just start digging a random hole, and every time they're right on top of a nice Sedalia. And
Absolutely.
that George, man, he's just chomping through them, you know? It's just like, gosh. That site was cool. I really wish that we could have got in on the good digging.
Well, see, that's why when I had the opportunity given to me, you know, had a little bit of money, had a friend that wanted to invest his money, you know, we wanted to buy our own site.
Yeah.
That way, we don't have to ask anybody permission. It's ours. We can do what we want. Nobody can tell us what we can't do with it. It's because that's always been my most favorite culture. A lot of people know the Atlee Point's one of my most favorite points, you know, even though, of course, I love them all. You know, Dixon's, Dalton's, you know, it doesn't matter what era.
Athens.
You know, I've never found a full hardened point, so it's still kind of eluded me for 20 years.
Yeah.
You know, I want a hardened point.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be able to learn as much as I can. And I have learned a lot about that culture than even some archaeologists that think they know about
Yeah,
that
I
culture.
know.
Because when they go in and they do a dig, and I have learned recently that especially like archaeologists that worked for MoDOT years ago, you know, said they're opening up a roadside or whatever, doing some area, and a couple artifacts are found. They bring in them archaeologists. Them archaeologists run a machine,
Yeah.
and they scrape off layers of the dirt until they hear a And then they stop and then they dig.
Like, oh, there's the artifact layer.
Oh,
You know, then they dig that little spot up and they go back to scraping with that machine. Now, tell me, where is that more correct than what we do?
Yeah, that's
You know, and then they don't investigate the whole site.
no.
We are looking to investigate the whole site, everything from one end to the other. Now, those guys, I do have respect for them because they do collect information that, you know, we don't. You know, a lot of times it's because we don't have that type of equipment. It's like most archaic sites, even Sedalia sites. A lot of them that have been done been professional archaeologists, mainstream guys, especially the ones here in Missouri. You know, they save every manufactured flag. They save everything. Most of those sites, especially your Sedalia Etley sites, doesn't matter where it's at in the state, you may only find 10% of the material that's actually been heat treated. And some of that, they don't know if it was heat treated because it's just close to the fire,
Yeah,
or they actually heat treated the point.
like purposely.
Because, like Burlington, you don't have to heat treat it.
No,
a
it's
lot of
easy.
people don't know. A lot of them fancy colored Cahokia points out of Burlington,
Yeah,
the larger majority of those have never been heat treated.
yeah,
Jess City Church, Ruby Du Church, Gasconade Church does not have to be heat treated to be a good nappable raw stone material. Even though it's harder than hell, they were such good nappers that they didn't need to heat treat it.
yeah. Well, we have a friend named Howard, and he grew up in Adams County, Illinois, and his dad is where they lived at was the highest point in Adams County. It was all downhill from there. I mean, 30 miles to the nearest rivers, but you would not believe the arrowheads that they were finding right there when his dad would plow up. Dovetails, cob knives, Daltons, Hardens. I mean,
Sure,
Stillwell.
it's always a great lookout advantage.
Yeah,
You know,
it's,
and then a lot of people don't consider the fact when you take camps, they were all seasonal.
yeah,
They did not, you know, show up there and say, this is where we're going to camp, this is where we're going to live for the rest of our life.
yeah,
No, they use up the resources in that area without completely burning them out. Then they move. You know, it don't matter if it's 100 yards or a half a mile or whatever for so many years and then return back to that camp. And my biggest theory with that is because even if you take axes, they did not make axes to go chop down every single tree. Most firewood was always gathered. Now, of course, they'd come across dead trees where they could actually, you know, chop it down a little bit, or even if it's fell down, you know, break it up into smaller pieces and make it packable. Firewood was the most conserved resource whatsoever.
yeah,
The only time they would burn a fire was to keep themselves warm, what they needed, or to cook food.
Yeah.
You're not going to want to keep a fire going all the time because you're going to run out of your wood resource.
yeah,
And that always caused them to need to move to another area. Who knows? If they did it for 5 years, 10 years, that stuff we will never know.
yeah,
You know, there's always going to be unanswered questions. But once you've been doing it for so long, there's a lot of it that's really just practical thinking. And that's practical.
yeah,
You know, say if we go out in the woods right now and we have to have no metal and only stone to work with, we're only going to stay in that area till we use up our wood resource. We're going to want to move down to
Yeah.
the next mile camp.
yeah, for
You
sure.
know, the next water hole, the terrain always makes a difference, you know, as to where they wanted to camp at in the springtime, summertime, wintertime was always different, you know, for several different reasons. A lot of them, those we won't know. You know, though I do know in the wintertime when you're on a hill, a lot of times you're, even if it's a little windy, if you're in the right position,
You're 40 degrees warmer.
yeah, you're 40 degrees warmer from being down at the bottom.
And that's exactly why I think that they would move in the wintertime. Like, Land of Lost is down the valley. There's no way they camp down there in a cold winter because it would be so brutally cold down there. They would have to burn up all that firewood just stay warm, you know? Yeah, let's, boom, go up the hill.
Well, it's like the dirty hole. You know, you guys, you know how the big flat area is.
Yep.
You dig a long ways through that, it's a while for you to find something. You get to where the elevation slightly changes. Same thing at the Cucumber, you know, which it had the houses in all the flat areas.
Yeah,
But a lot of that other really good digging was done where that terrain just barely starts to change. Well, even with digging a fire pit during whatever the wind is blowing from that week or that day, that's where you want to be on the opposite side of where the wind's blowing from, so you have some type of wind block. That way it's not burning up your firewood faster than what you want it to.
Man, there's a lot of digging out there with that cucumber that needs to be dug. A lot of dirt.
He wants us to come out and do a
I know.
redig even. Come
You know,
on out. Well, I need help. He needs help.
The thing
It's
is
the edges.
the edges. Yeah, and everybody's been so concentrated of where it was good. I know there's hot spots on the edges that are just as hot, but they just haven't been tapped. And for all those paleo points that he is finding, and I'm talking nice paleo points, no water wear on them. They were sharp. They were found. And they were found close, coming out of the ground. And if you notice, that ridge goes a long way.
Yeah, that's a big ridge.
I think somewhere up on that ridge, somewhere, there's a paleo site.
Dalton side or something.
Yeah, well, there has to be. They found
That's
so many
funny.
nice Daltons and Sloan Daltons, and they look like they were just made right there with the Sedalias and the Etleys, but of course they're not.
Well, any good camp for one was always a good camp for another, especially when you had a good spring. It's
That's
like
true.
the dirty hole. Richards had 2 Daltons he dug up there. Howard has a couple Daltons. I have a rope Dalton. I have an agate basin. I have a Dalton hemp pill. My neighbor had 4 Daltons found. He had a Dalton Sloan knife made out of a Texas material that a lot of the guys didn't want to call it a Dalton Sloan because it had a straight, flat base to it.
Yeah.
But if you looked at it, it had Dalton Sloan flaking to it.
Yeah.
And those have been found from one side to 30 yards away.
Yeah.
You know, and 20 acres from one end to the other.
Yeah.
So for me, that tells me that they just weren't finding those, that there's actually a Dalton camp there.
Yeah. No, that could very
But
easily be.
because of my physical abilities, I can only stand and dig so much. If somebody doesn't open up a big, nice, deep trench for me, it's hard for me to get it to there.
Yeah.
So, you know, our plan has always been, let's go through the top section. We're going to bring in a machine, pick that dirt up, run it all through a screen, save all the rock, put all that dirt to the side, probably just sell it as clean dirt. And then we have all the other tan clay to dig through. And once I have it exposed, and that's the thing about tan clay, a lot of it, you have to expose it, allow it to get weather to it, and then dry out, you know, to the right consistency. You don't want it too moist, you don't want it dry, because it turns to concrete when it's dry. But once I have it like that, then I can grid out small areas. Even if I just do 20 square feet at a time, put 1 square foot grids inside of those, and take a rod and prod and just look for the sound of flint.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's looking for a single point or looking for a cache. Once you find that, then you go ahead and you dig that square. If you're finding stuff, then you go ahead and you dig it up a little bit more. You clear an area like that, you don't find nothing, you don't have to dig it. But you cannot do that without exposing it and making it clean ground.
Yeah, that clay, it can get pretty brutal, to say the least. Now, so you think that, see, I've always stopped at clay. I've never went past the clay pan ever.
Well, our tan clay holds all kinds of stuff in it. You know, you don't, unless you're in a shelter, you're not going to find much woodland in it. It's all mostly always archaic.
Yeah.
But once you get to the red clay, you're done. You know, unless you're going to dig for dinosaurs in this state, there's nothing else in the red clay.
Yeah.
You know, I've known too many guys, even Richard, him and Beasley, like dug major holes in the red clay and never found a single flake.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and they just didn't do little test holes. I mean, they dug rooms, you know, through the red clay because
exhausting
they didn't
work.
know yet.
Yeah,
you know?
Exhausting work.
So there's always somebody, you know, that's older than you to learn from.
Yeah.
Especially anybody that's had a lot of experience at it. You know, it's like anything I've ever learned in my life, you know, has always started from somebody that had more experience to me.
Yeah.
And then you have to take your years of experience and constantly build on it.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't launch your way through it. You know, if you don't think about everything, you're not going to learn nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, not only learn nothing, you're not going to find much either.
Well, yeah, a guy may find a lot and just not care to learn.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
there is that.
All they're thinking about is, oh, I just want that arrowhead. I just want that arrowhead. And that's all they're digging for.
Yeah.
Chancey
You know?
dug up an entire clay pot. 80% of this clay
Oh,
pot.
yeah. I remember
He
watching
dug it
that.
up, and there's nothing else for feet. There's this.
Yeah.
That was it. That was buried alone, or however that happened.
And believe it or not, I was like, oh, Chancey, why don't you just dig right there? Just try that spot out. His first wiggle pick, he put a little hole in it. He went right through it. It was only about that deep underneath the soil.
That was it.
Now, see, I definitely don't get jealous. I just don't believe in jealousy. I never have. I've never really understood that. I do understand envy.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and there's very little things that I envy other people for. Anybody can dig up a clay pot and even put it back together, I envy that.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
Kept it
because
together.
all my pottery is all broken pieces.
Yeah,
That's
mine
all
too.
I
I'm-
find. That's all you find in most shelters around here. You know, back in the 50s, people were walking in caves and picking up full pots. You know, once everybody found out they could do that, a lot of them places were,
Yeah.
they were accessible.
Yeah.
Even accessible to them people by trespassing. They were hunting them places down.
I
And they
know.
weren't going there digging, they were just going there for the clay pots.
Isn't that crazy?
Well, this spot wasn't in a shelter or anything. It was out in the field.
It's a
Oh,
hilltop.
yeah.
It's a archaic
That's
hilltop site.
insane.
There's a guy in Arkansas, they own a great big piece of land. No shelters, they dig up clay pots like crazy.
Is that weird?
That's the same day.
Yeah, it's a good site. There's a lot of Etleys up there. Well, I mean, we're starting to get into Sedalias now, obviously, because it's up north.
Yeah, that's definitely Netley.
Well, we have that one right next to it. That's only 10 foot away. I dug that up at. There's a couple that I dug up there that completely.
The last time we were up there, I found that I call it the butter knife Etleys, that big white butter knife looking Etley. It's really long but I found probably about six broken Sedalias up
That was a
there.
nice one. Too bad you don't know that today. The hookah's going really good.
Well, you guys keep talking. I gotta take a pee break. I have
What
to.
was your first point you ever found? Can you tell me about that?
Well, that would be this Dixon right here on my arm, which is in my Dixon case with the tip missing.
Is that scale 1 to 1?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the
The
man.
flaking
That's a
and
nice
all.
one.
Every flake scar, every percussion wave inside the flake scar is exactly as it came off of the point. I had like a little piece of broken end of a blade I found in the creek that I found before that. But that Dixon was my first dirt find. Me and my wife had went to a swap meet where it's a great big, gigantic swap meet. They have a little bit of everything there, a lot of animals. We came across these people that were giving away a free dog. There's this little fluffy dog they had free on the cage. My wife asked me, can we get the dog? It's really cute, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, we already have 2 chows and a cat. We don't need any more other animals. Well, as we walked around for 2 or 3 more hours, she constantly kept bugging me about it. So I told her, I said, well, we'll go back and check. I said, if the dog's still there, you can have it. So, of course, we get back there, and the dog is still there. And so I bring the dog home, and of course, because it had free on the cage, she decides to name the dog Freedom. Sorry, folks, we have an interruption at the door.
Hey, is Mike home?
Yeah, we're doing a podcast right now.
Okay, I just had a quick favor to ask you.
Okay.
I was wondering if Tuesday, Wednesday, I was planning to give me a ride to work.
Can you give her a ride to work?
Tuesday, Wednesday, just coming up, wait,
I take my dad doctor Wednesday.
Wednesday, what about Tuesday?
I can probably do it Tuesday.
Okay, I was gonna wait until Jim got home and see if he could take me one of those days.
Okay.
Okay, alright, thanks.
Sorry about that, folks. Okay, back to the
Hold on.
freedom story.
I'll never pause one of these, so hold on.
Uh-oh, you paused it? Man, you should just kept it rolling. That's
Well, I didn't know how long that was gonna take.
that's part of the quality there.
Hey, we're good.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so here my wife's wanting this dog. So I tell her yes, we go back, we get it. She names him Freedom. We bring him home. I was taught as a young kid because we had a Cocker Spaniel that was really hard to control.
Yeah.
So my stepdad sent me and the dog to a dog training school. So I learned really well from those people how to train dogs appropriately. We only had Freedom, I think, 2 months. I was at work one day, something happened, caused him to get out on the road. Of course, that's all it takes sometimes on a busy highway.
Yeah.
We didn't believe in chaining or caging up our animals.
Yeah.
You know, we taught them to listen and to stay out of the road. My wife's beat, tired. I said, we just covered them up in a blanket, and I said, I'll do it tomorrow when I get home.
Yeah.
You know, so I went to work the next day, and I come home like early, you know, a couple hours before daylight. I didn't even move Freedom. I just started digging a hole right next to basically where I lived.
Yeah.
Well, that Dixon was in the last shovel full of dirt.
Really?
2 foot deep.
Yeah, we got into that earlier, and you started talking about Freedom, but we never finished the story. So, I was like, how's a dog story going to tie into the Arrowhead? And so that's awesome.
I couldn't put that point down for a week. I mean, anywhere I went, it was in my pocket. I was pulling it out, fondling it. I'd fondle up my pocket.
Yeah.
You know.
Hashtag me too.
Which point is that on your own?
This one right here.
That one right there.
That's that black and gray one right there, and that. Yep, that one right there. And so I showed that to some friends I had. I knew they arrowhead hunted, and they're like, "Oh, well, you probably got more there. You need to dig up the whole yard." Well, I said that in front of my wife, and she's like, "Well, we ain't digging up no yard. That's probably just a fluke." And for a while, I thought it was a fluke until later on, when I got smarter, I realized no, there's a camp there because there's a spring right down over the hill. And I mean the beginning of a spring that runs through 600 acres of property, through the middle of it, dumps into another creek that runs into another creek, that creek runs into a major riverway.
Oh man, so you're at the very top.
Yeah, it
That's
was
cool.
a major camp. But that point holds a lot for me, especially with it being my freedom point, because I'm a true blood American mutt as they get. You know, I'm Scott Irish, and there's a little bit of Cherokee in there, so I'm a big mutt mix. You know what I mean? I'm a pure American mutt.
I think we all are.
Well, of course.
I'm
but
purebred, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I strongly believe in my American rights. And as long as I'm being a good person in society and I'm not doing, you know, things that are destructive towards society, then I should be allowed to do as I please.
Exactly.
You know,
I
I
believe
don't
that.
do anything wrong. I don't, you know, steal from people. I don't lie to people. I don't cheat on people, you know, whatever. You know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
And so for me, digging that point up was kind of like a calling, you know, that said, you are meant to dig arrowheads. Now, a good friend of ours, a lot of people know Mike Kirk, M. Kirk Point on YouTube. He's come here and visited a time, and he's, you know, mentioned one time, he just said, you know, a lot of people go to dig for an arrowhead and they do it one time and they're done.
Yep.
And it does take a certain type of person to do it. And nowadays, it is so hard for me to do compared to pre-accident.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally put myself through hell.
Yeah.
But every time I pull something out, that natural high is so great,
Yeah.
I cannot stop.
What if a doctor prescribed you 2 arrowheads a day?
Well,
You need to up your medication. Can you dig more?
That would be awesome.
Yes.
a lot of people know, of course, a lot of people listening to the podcast probably don't, but they had me on heavy pain medication for 8 years. So I was able to do a lot more.
Yeah.
At one time, they had me taking 195 milligrams of morphine a day. That's
Holy
what they give. That's more than what they give some cancer patients.
Yeah.
Jeez,
You
you
know.
gotta bump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
And they gave me that because, you know, they were only giving me like 130 or 45, whatever it was at the time. And I come in and my doctor's like, are you out power walking yet? I'm like, hell no, man. It hurts to do too much, you know?
Yeah.
She's like, well, what if we increase your medication a little bit? You know, so that gave me a little bit more juice. You
Of
know what I
course.
mean? Or I could last a little bit longer, a little easier to do, didn't have as much pain, you know, that I had to fight. But once you have something bred into you, you can't take it out.
No.
It doesn't matter what you have to go through,
Yeah.
you know. Now, of course, you know, nowadays when I do most of anything, it's for a few hours, half a day, whatever. The rest of the time is spent recouping. You know, a lot of times I do something one day, I can't do it the next day.
Yeah.
You know, I don't keep my house up like I used to. I mean, I'm OCD. You could usually come in my house and never find an unclean spot, you
Yeah.
know. And nowadays, I just have to let it ride as it does.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, I think
there is still some things, you know, that always have to be done or whatever.
your house
you
is
know,
cool,
but-
man. I like your setup.
It's a museum. I
It
mean,
is
that's
a
one of the.
museum.
We have to do this podcast at Mike's. I mean,
Oh yeah, for sure.
it feels good to be in here. It really does.
Well, it's
So,
just-
your accident, what exactly happened?
I had some coworkers that didn't put some scaffolding up correctly, and I put too much trust into them. I was on a third-story house, about 3 feet over the back top deck, doing the outside corner piece, soffit and fascia, where you always have to put your angles together. The carpenters had a little bit out of square, so I was having to spend a little bit more time on it than I wanted to, and it came out from underneath me, and I fell 35 feet, landed on my feet. It blew apart vertebrae from L11 to T11 to L3. Broke my C1 of my neck, which is what they call a Superman break. So in actuality, I should have been dead from the neck down, or just been dead.
Yeah.
And then they said my body crumbled over, my left arm hit a big rock, and it blew both bones out. So while I'm laying there, I don't even feel my arm, but I can tell it's not right because my hand's at a 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
You know, like my arm's like a big square,
Oh,
you know, a speed
God.
square, drywall
Yeah.
square going the other way. All I could scream from was my back, you know. But when I woke up next day in the hospital, they'd already done operated on my arm that night, and you know, first I was strapped down 20 different ways. I couldn't move. The only thing I could move was my right hand, and it had a pain button taped up in it.
Hit that bad boy, right?
Well, yeah, that's what they
Hold it
said. They
down.
said, you know, it only administers whatever every 4 or 3 minutes, or like you can hit it 30 times or 100 times, it's gonna count it. That way you ain't gotta worry about hitting it every 3 minutes, you know. Well, I really don't realize anything I've done yet, you know, until you tell me. And I said, well, 99% of people that break their C1 in their neck either end up dead from the neck down or dead. I said, you are basically 1 in a million.
Yeah.
So we don't see that. We've never had that ever come here.
That's
Ever.
awesome.
You know, and my spine doctor at the time, and still is considered one of the top spine doctors out of the country, you know, which he left Columbia University, or whatever, the university hospital, you know, so many years back because somebody else offered him a bunch more money.
Yeah.
So now he lives in California and goes skiing
He's
whenever
a
he wants.
genius.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a
He
genius.
made the right decision.
He's smart.
Yeah, well, that's a bummer. How about that?
But that has always, I mean, it took me a long time to get over it because the first year I like hated the world and everybody on it. You know what I mean? Everything had been taken away from me. But once I learned to turn that around for myself, it's always worked better for me, you know,
Yeah.
to a point. You
Yeah.
know, I'd much rather be back at work 5 days, 6 days a week. I mean, I went many times in my lifetime working 7 days a week just because I liked money.
Yeah.
You know, and I liked my job. I loved my job. It wasn't like a, you know, a job to me. It was more like playtime.
Yeah.
You know, let's go lay 40 square today, you know.
Yeah.
Let's see how fast I can go.
That's
you
awesome.
know?
Yeah.
And so it took me a long time to get over that, but it definitely implanted one thing in my brain. You cannot count on tomorrow. You have to live for today
Yeah.
and the moments within the day. And it doesn't matter what you think that holds you back. There's always something that you can find to propel yourself forward, whether it's a small amount or a great amount. As long as you're trying to learn and progress off of yourself, at least you're accomplishing something.
Yeah. Yep, I agree.
Epicurean. That's what the great Epicurean said. Live today like there's no tomorrow.
Absolutely. Because you can't count on tomorrow. I always tell everybody, you can get in your vehicle and you can drive 2 blocks down the road and somebody's going to crash into you and kill you. Why do you want to not accomplish today whatever it is you can? You
Yeah.
know, whether it's little or great,
Yeah.
there's always something you can do.
Yep. I've always believed in that type of living. Now, my arrowhead hunting has slowed down a lot. Having a kid changes everything.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But before you have a kid, you're like, oh, it ain't gonna do much. But yeah,
You flipped a truck when we were kids.
yeah. When we were in high school, I flipped my Toyota really bad. I flew out the window, and got a major concussion. I mean, it's so bad. I was pushing my ear out. My mom took me right home, went right to bed. You know, it was pretty bad. But I mean, it's just that was more being stupid than an
You were
accident.
still lucky though.
Oh hell
It could have been
yeah!
a lot worse.
Joining the army, I got a lot of adrenaline out of that. And coming back from Iraq, I didn't care. Got a crotch rocket, went skydiving, got my scuba license. I was anything with adrenaline, and that's still like that. I'm still the same guy. Just, oh, cool, adrenaline here. And arrowheads happen to be the adrenaline that I needed.
Well, that's good. And we always thank you for your service, Dane. We always thank all our servicemen and women.
You may not be able to put that up there, I don't know.
If it wasn't for them, we probably wouldn't have a lot of our freedoms we do today.
Nope.
Yeah, don't get caught digging arrowheads in Cuba. Off with this head. No, it's just a small bird point,
Yeah.
please.
I could care less if I ever step off of the United States.
Yep, me too.
I'm plenty happy here. I don't need to see the world.
I won't ever leave mid Missouri. I won't ever leave
What?
Elton.
I mean, I like the world. I've been all over it. It's
No,
beautiful.
the travel, yeah. I'm talking move.
No, yeah, move.
You can't take my arrowheads away from me.
Yeah, it'd be. There's no way I could move anywhere else.
No way. I mean, we have everything we need right here.
I mean, he still has some great hunting in Kentucky, Tennessee. I mean, all over the country if you get in the right area.
Yeah.
But to me, there's nothing like Missouri.
No.
They not just for all hunting. Artifacts, animals, mushrooms.
Mushrooms, yes. I love mushroom hunting.
Anything you want to hunt in Missouri. I mean, you have just rock clubs where all they do is hunt geodes and gemstones and all kinds of things. I mean, there's a little bit of everything. Missouri has some great national forest lands with trails you can hike down for days and never see anybody.
Well, okay, what is Missouri law? Well, okay, so say you're in a state forest, and obviously there's houses out in the state forest. Can you just park on the side of the road and go hiking?
Well, a lot of those places have a designated area, but you do run into where a trail comes right across the road or whatever. A lot of those spots, yeah, you have like a little parking area. Sometimes you can pull off, or if it's an appropriate ditch, you just put your vehicle in a ditch and then go.
But they can't tow your truck over that or anything?
No, I think
No,
public
most
roads.
of those places don't because they know you have to park there to access that part of the trail.
There's
Yeah.
public roads, and you have it's like a 15 feet easement on the road or something.
Well, if you go,
I think it's 8 feet off of the outside line.
8
Is
feet.
what it is.
Which is
that's
what-
that's on each
The
side.
average vehicle's 6 foot wide,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, if you go up to Ashland on the way to Columbia,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
go east, there's that massive, I think it's called the Mark Twain National Forest
Yep.
there. And, of course, Turkey Creek, or is that Turkey or Cedar Creek?
Well, no, that's not Mark. Mark Twain National Forest is south.
I think they have a bunch of them,
Southeast.
don't they?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
all
Mark
called-
Twain forests or national forests are all over
Yeah,
Missouri.
there's
I
a
think
bunch
I think most of them are called the Mark Twain National Forest.
They're just called. I thought, okay, maybe.
Well, I know on the map, I'm pretty sure it says Mark Twain National Forest on it, but, I mean, it's
Yeah,
huge.
I have my Gazette map right over there. We can pull it out and look at it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's huge, and I was just working up by there, and I was wanting to just go kind of check it all out, but I didn't know if you could just.
Well, I can name the waterways, but I do a little bit of hunting up there myself. But that's where my best fossil hunting comes from.
Yeah.
Because
ours
there's a
is all-
couple of waterways up there that you can jump off in, and dang near every rock or every other rock has a fossil in
Yeah.
it, and some of them are just literally flooded in it. Now you get down here around us, on this side of the Missouri River, the south side, you don't find that as
Yeah.
much in creeks. We find a lot of gastropods, but still the amount of gastropods I have from our creeks compared to the amount of fossils from those areas are like small.
Yeah.
I mean, very, very small.
Most fossils I find around here are actually digging for arrowheads that the Indians must have grabbed.
Well, absolutely.
I have several that little snails, They're not the prints like you usually find. They're actually the snail part.
Yeah, gastropod.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no.
That's what the circle of life comes from.
In the circle of life.
My favorite one. My favorite one is this one right here. I don't have one with, I have a lot of them with pretty good rings, but
So this is your circle of life.
yeah.
You know
That's a
what? That's
gastropod.
cool, man. Because yeah, that is totally
I mean, that rock's millions of years old. Do you think that they didn't pick up them fossils while they were hunting waterways looking for regular napping stone?
yeah,
It's just, it's small thinking.
yeah. Did I?
You have to always, especially when it comes to archaeology, anything in archaeology, you have to always think a little bit out of the box a little bit.
Yeah.
But you still have to leave your thinking as practical. What would you do?
Yeah.
You know, it's really, when it comes down to the basics, it's actually very simplicity of living.
Yeah.
You know, they lived a very simplicity part of life.
Yeah.
Everything was about survival. But with inside that survival, you know, they have everything they had to do.
Yeah. Well,
And they always had to hunt stone, you know, and they always hunted waterways. I mean, we know that from the No Name site, the Cucumber, most sites you've dug on,
Yeah.
most sites I've dug on. You find rocks that they mined, and you find rocks that they picked up out of the waterway
Yeah.
and napped.
Yeah.
And we know that a lot of times because of the outer core of the rock.
Yeah.
You have that, around us you get that brown acidic stain on, and that's real patina, patinated color. What a lot of us have called patina for years is actually mineral deposits.
Yeah.
And it's like digging up at the Cucumber or digging up at the Hole or any ridge site like that, or a bottom camp. Most of those mineral deposits are always on the top side of the point. However, it was laying flat. You look at the underside, it may have a few spots of mineral deposits on it. The top side sometimes is just literally covered.
Yeah.
That's because that's where most of the vegetation was on top of the point, not underneath it.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I'm learning a lot right now.
Yeah, I'm overwhelmed with information. I might actually come back and listen to this podcast.
What, just listen to it?
What? Oh man, missed that. Well, check it out though. I know how to get to this podcast, and it's a website.
You guys want to take a short break for a minute?
No break, sorry.
Oh.
No
No
break.
break for you.
Well-
You keep working. It's if you go to Hookah Talk,
I
HOOK
gotta drink some coffee.
AHTALK dot LIBSYN.com.
Good lord.
I spelled it out for you, so if you can't find it, we're gonna post it on our YouTube and our Instagram, so you can find how to get to this
It will be
podcast.
uploaded tonight, right?
Oh, it'll be uploaded. Man, I might just upload it here.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go through and edit anything. We're going dry.
Yeah. You say you can pause that thing?
Yeah, I paused it already.
Let's take a pause and let's take a break. I need to stretch my legs.
Alright, well, you're gonna pause the live?
Yeah, we'll pause everything, then we'll be back on.
And we'll be back with fresh hookah shisha, because we've went through 4 or 5 coals already.
Yeah.
And this shishas keep going, so.
Yeah, we need a new bowl for sure.
Hopefully everybody's enjoying the information that we're giving out. And
Give us a shout out. Let us know if you have any questions about anything, and then we'll come back in 10 and we'll start again.
with questions. I'm
yeah.
gonna knock out some questions. Okay.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So let's do that. Ask the questions, send them in, and then we'll get started back in 10 minutes.
Pause. Go ahead and you can pause everything that's live. Or stop it. I mean,
Hey, heck yeah! The Instagram got 45 people watching.
you might want to do that.
Yeah. We'll be
Awesome.
back 10
Hey.
minutes.
So you guys pausing your phone for a minute?
Yeah.